Hello, welcome to the Diablo podcast. We are online at diabloinkgamers.com. I am the host Flux. This is part 2 of show 115, continuing on with Katniss and Neinball as the guests. But there's no overlap in topics. We reset it up so they'd be two separate halves. We just had a lot of material to cover, so this is purely split for length reasons. You don't need to listen to that one first or this one second, although it wouldn't hurt if you did. Enjoy the show. What was your first Diablo 3 class? What did you want to play before the game came out, and do you still like them, and how did that evolve over time? And I guess you can answer that in two parts, Katniss, as the console and the not console.
All right, so obviously my name is Katniss, right? So I like archers, and the Demon Hunter looks so badass starting out. I was like, oh my God, like two one-handed crossbows, that's sick. I'm gonna be like a machine gun, just rattling off, pop, 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 sweet. And it was good starting out, but that was because everything on it was bugged. Like Smokescreen was just OP, Nether Tentacles was OP, and then Vault with Trail of Cinders was OP, and they were all bugged. And as they started to get fixed, you realize, crap, Demon Hunter really isn't, where all the other classes are right now. Like they just seem far and away way too glass cannony, way too not able to progress up to the levels that, I mean, compared to a Barb, and it's just like there's no contest here. So starting out, I really wanted a Demon Hunter. That was the one banner thing that I did beforehand. I don't know if you guys remember, you could do like the design your banner or whatever, and then you would get a feat of strength in game,
Yeah,
and like
the Heroes Rise Darkness Falls.
yeah, that, yeah. And so I did that for the Demon Hunter because I was so amped on that class. And then when I got in, I was so disappointed. Once all the changes came in and once attack speed was nerfed and everything like that, they just started to lose so much power. And it was the class I was planning to play with friends, and my friends weren't on as much as I was, so I ended up having a barb to like kill time. And then of course that became my main just because they were way, way, way too good. And then on console, I was like, well, I've played Barb all along, so I'll start with that, and really enjoyed it. The melee is very good in the console. But what's actually really funny is you can stack attack speed from those weapons that give you plus attacks per second, like a Echoing Fury or the Ancient Bone Saber of Zumakalis or whatever. But it gets to the point where you actually attack too fast, and you don't have targets in front of you, so you just stand in place, like holding down X or whatever the button is that you have on your controller, and you're not moving forward because the attack is just happening, and you can't move until you stop attacking. So you actually end up being really inefficient going that way, especially if you're using Frenzy on the Barb or whatever. So I ended up switching to the Monk just because Thunderclap lets you teleport around and essentially like seeks out your targets for you. So even if you have crazy attack speed, it's just resetting that cycle of when you pick up a new target for teleporting.
Yeah, and for you, Nineball, as I recall, your first character worked out really well, and you played him long term, and you didn't have to switch anything because the gear was all awesome, right? That's how it was in the console and the PC release.
Yeah, actually, that's how it was. For me, the character that I wanted to play the most was the monk, and it's the one that I ended up starting with, and still play and would like to say as my main. Though now that I switched to hardcore, it keeps dying. That's a different story. But when I first started playing, it was with a group of friends, and I was the only Dex user because it was barbarian. All my other friends were either barbarians, wizards, or witch doctors. No one was playing demon hunters, and no one else was playing monks. So
If only you'd known Katniss back then.
yes, it.
Hmm.
You guys are like you could have completed each other.
Aw,
I needed you.
aw, so touching. But it was because no one else had any use for any of the dexterity gear. I ended up being the best geared out of everyone as we were going and playing and leveling up those first like that first week because I just kept hey here's a dex ring or here's some dex armor, and so my gear was actually really good. Then of course as all melee remembers, pre-nerf Inferno, it didn't really help me out that much once I got there. I ended up having to re-roll a wizard, but in the grand scheme of things, I really enjoy the monk and how it plays. I wish that I could afford some of the better gear so that way I could go back to using Wave of Light as one of my main skills. Don't have to worry about my survivability as much, but it's something that I look forward to in Loot 2.0, and potentially trying out the Crusader when Rebirth Souls comes out.
Yeah, my new monk, I went without OWE on this one. I had never tried it that way before,
Threw
and
off
it's so much more
backwards.
fun
Wow, all res monk.
because I have that frees up one passive, and I'm using Exalted Soul on that, which gives me the much bigger pool and more regen rate for spirit, and I can just I can basically any boss I get if I've timed my stats right, I have full pool. I can hit him with a double, I can hit the overpower, and I also have the
The blinding faith or whatever.
blinding faith, whatever. You hit that double buff, and you're immediately 100% bonus damage basically, and I can drop 3 bells, and I can essentially three-shot any boss in the game up to MP4 at this point. So that's really nice having that much more of your base pool, because if you don't have that base pool, you do the double buff, and then you've only got enough left for 1 bell,
Right.
and you can't go bang bang. So it's really great. It's not. It's also really nice because it's sort of a weird disincentive when you're doing one with everything. Is that any item that doesn't have that res feels like a useless, wasteless item, a wasted item.
Hmm.
So if you have arcane or cold or whatever, you'll craft some awesome shoulders with res all on fire. Like, oh crap, I can't use these. They don't have my OWE. It's a waste.
Hmm.
And whereas if you don't have that, it's just hey, it's 50 more fire res. Pile on, hop on the chef, boys. Throw another shrimp on the Barbie. It's fine with me. And it just feels like much more options. And I think I have a little bit less total res than I did previously. I mean, all my reses are like 500 to 600 as opposed to like 700 with the old character. But it's so much easier to gear, and I'm much cheaper on the gear, and I can do much more killing speed with the passive there. But that was entirely off topic. The thing I was gonna say, that was basically just taunting Neinball because he has poor monks and I don't. But
Oh,
Title of this
other than
podcast: Let's make fun of Neinball's dying monks.
oh, oh, that's so sad.
well, given I've got a dead 60 and a 90, I think I'm probably ahead of you on that. But
Yeah, yeah.
at least they live before they could. All monks must die, but not all monks may truly live, or whatever. Anyway, so first characters, I was really eager for the wizard, my favorite character pregame, and I liked demon hunters a lot once they showed them as well. But wizard was my whole hope. And when I first started the game, I played a barb, a wizard, and a demon hunter, kind of alternating them and trading gear between them, sort of like a party that never actually got to play together. And I got through to 60, and I just didn't like any of the wizard builds. I mean, I liked the idea of it. I have this gigantically long wizard guide in the Diablo 1 wiki that I wrote, 15 years ago or whatever. And I played a ton of sorceress in Diablo 2, and I really liked the fast clicking and the Nova and the teleport. And that build doesn't really exist in D3. I mean, you can kind of do it with the CM build, but that's really just sort of the lockdown Frost Nova thing.
Hmm.
And I really liked the Tri-Tree Wizards in D2 before the synergies all came in, and where you could have like Hydra and Frozen Orb and Nova or something like that, and you just had different purposes. You'd drop a Hydra and then you'd spam Frozen Orbs or whatever, or spam Charged Bolts, and you were just constant movement, constant speed casting, really always aggressive, always popping around, playing risky, and that just doesn't really exist in D3. That build does not, and I probably couldn't play it in hardcore anyway, but and you just have to have all these defensive skills in D3. You don't have unlimited teleporting speeds, and you don't have the kind of the arcane power thing doesn't work the same way. So that's just, I mean, I said that in the forum post and the news post as well. But I mean, I had my main plan was a wizard, and that's actually probably the character I played the least overall since the game came out. And ironically, my last characters were, as I said, I played the other three first. I didn't do a witch doctor or a monk for a while, and I did those long term eventually. And I'd say that those are probably my monk is definitely the one I played the most of, and demon hunter is the second. But I think witch doctor is the third now, and I really enjoy the witch doctor and Inferno now. And I wish I had. If I had damn Paragon points sharing, I'd be playing them a lot more. But it seems like a waste with 117 MF, and my monk's got 475. So it's kind of hard to do that. But yeah, I think we all shifted quite a bit from what we had planned in the first place. If we only could have traded places with each other. We're all playing each other's mains and now long term.
Yeah,
Right.
I was just about to say. I was going to say earlier. It's like we're all maining monks at the moment. If we ever actually talk about class balance in this podcast, is going to be totally non-biased.
Related topic. What is your plan for Reaper of Souls? If the game came out next week, are you going to play a current level 60 and get them to 70? Are you going to do a Crusader? Are you going to cry for the auction house? What is your plan, Nineball?
Well, I think I will. I would shed a tear for the auction house, definitely. But my actual plan at the moment is to at least get some strength twink gear together and level up a Crusader from the beginning and get him up to 60, or at least play through normal and do
70.
70. Thank you. Yes, I almost forgot about that. But or at least at the very minimum, play through normal and get a feel for Act 5 on normal before I attempt to tackle it on any of my max level characters, because I have that dying problem.
Are you going to go hardcore at the start
Yeah.
on your Crusader?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you're just such a man. What is your plan, Katniss?
Well, the reason that I've been consoling so heavily is because ladders were essentially data mined and then confirmed. So my plan is to go ahead and start on the ladder. Like, I haven't been doing any like softcore auction housing or anything like that. I'm going to give 2 middle fingers to the auction house, say peace out, I hate you, and then start up on hardcore ladder. Actually, I did do some
That
hardcore with the self-found and really enjoyed that, and essentially that's kind of what ROS seems like it will be benefiting. So I'm looking forward to just hopping in there and crusadering it up with hardcore ladder.
that is, of course, assuming ladders launch with the game.
And that's what I really hope. And if it doesn't, I'm going to be a little bummed out that I didn't do more paragoning. But I mean, even if it doesn't, I guess that's not such a bad thing, because I'll be able to, like you were saying, test out Act 5 so I know what to expect on a hardcore character. I would probably just do it softcore, do a softcore Crusader, and then test out loot runs,
Okay.
endgame, etc.
Yeah, if you're softcore, then what do you need to test out anything for? Just throw yourself at it. If you die, who cares?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I can test it just by like how glass cannony can I make my Crusader or whatever. How much do I really need, this shield to be this much block percent or whatever.
I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I actually kind of hope that the ladders are there right from the start. And if they have some system where you can't carry over any gear and you're starting off new, because I think that would be really fun to do with other friends of mine playing hardcore, to all start off at the same time with level ones and hardcore, and probably everyone would be able to be a Crusader, so I don't know how you'd work that out.
Yeah,
Right.
that
You got a
that would
rock,
make.
paper, scissors. Somebody's got to play a ranged character, damn it. You're like,
Please.
ah.
Well, that's actually one of the things that draws me to the Crusaders, the fact that they have, a really good, set of skills that mix between melee and ranged. And that's what kind of draws me to them. And I'm hoping, that if Blizzard does well with the Loot 2.0 and the new itemization system, that they'll be able to leverage that, where you can say, well, I want to play a melee Crusader or I want to play a ranged Crusader, much in the way that, they could have leveraged some of the monk skills a little bit more, and some of the items that have been data mined are showing that you could make a ranged monk with, say, Hand of Yitar and the legendary that makes it to where you can cast Wave of Light at range instead of in melee.
Well, I'll make you play a monk then. I'm thinking we're going to see the early days of Reaper of Souls. It's going to be like the first South Park Halloween episode where everybody dressed as Chewbacca, basically. And it's going to be a whole little world of Crusaders. Like, oh, look, another Crusader. Oh, look, it's a 4-player game. Hey, they're all Crusaders. Which could be kind of fun. Everybody be fighting over the best shield and stuff, and the one wizard getting all the gear because no one else wants it. But
Right.
Yeah.
as you said, that's all kind of predicated upon the ladder being there. If it's all twinks and whatever, then it'll be a very different
Well,
world.
but Flux, like you were saying too, like if they're gonna be people who haven't been playing the game for a while, definitely coming back for the expansion, it would behoove Blizzard to have ladders right at the get-go so that those people don't feel like they're already behind.
Fresh meat.
Well,
Fresh.
they wouldn't really feel so much that they're behind from the get go, because Loot 2.0 would be out and the auction houses would all be closed.
Yeah, but if
Yeah, great. There's no way to work their way up anymore. You got to
Yeah,
find
and
gear.
also it's like all of the gear that people have accumulated at 60 will be useless at 70, we assume. So they won't really have that much of an advantage. And just honestly speaking, the people that have tons and tons of money now will, end up being able to have tons and tons of an advantage in trading anyways, going into the new system, even starting from scratch. The people that were able to build themselves up to this point, will be able to build themselves back up to that point, no matter what the trading system or how gimped it is. They'll always.
Unless there's ladders.
Well, yeah, well, even in the ladders, they'll start off at the same level at us, but by the end, they'll have been able to have worked whatever system that it is with which, to get the money that they have, and have basically essentially more money than you, because it's not the auction house itself that allows them to have more money than, say, any of us here. It's their dedication or their ability to understand the economics and the trading system in the game, and to take advantage of it is what makes them so much money.
Or they just played a lot more.
right.
People had maybe they were playing 8 hours a day back, last May and June. They have an hour a day to play now, so it might be not. You can't leverage yourself up
Well,
if you don't have the time.
Well, I guess my point just in saying that those people would feel disadvantaged if there was no ladder on launch was just that, okay, if there is ladder, 100% of people who are participating in ladder are all starting out at level 1. If there is no ladder, there's going to be some fracturing of people who want to reroll Crusader or reroll a brand new class that they haven't tried yet. And then people who want to continue on their level 60s and then go on to level 70. So I'm just saying those players might find they have less people to play with because people want to experience, the new Act 5 right away, the level 70 gear right away, and there's no ladder to complicate that choice for them.
Well, then,
And there's no auction house to get rich
Yeah.
with using flipping.
the flip side of that, having a ladder at the beginning of the game is going to fracture it again, because there's people that are going to want to continue to play their level 60 characters and see the level 70 stuff before they take the jump into the ladder and lose everything. And then
And of course, the ladder resets every 3 months or whatever.
and then
so-
on the other side of that, then there's going to be the people that are starting on the ladder. There's going to be people that are starting new, not on the ladder, and then there's going to be people that are leveling their tunes at 60, not on the ladder. And then there's going to be a couple months into the ladder where you have people already at 60 and Paragon 50 and things like that, and people just going through and picking up the game for the first time and then trying it and such. So I mean, there's going to be fracturing of the community and everyone that's going through and playing, regardless of whatever system that they actually have in place. I'm just saying that, I I wouldn't count on the ladder being there directly at launch. I wouldn't have a problem with it if it is, but just because it was data mined, they data mined PvP stuff in the original game back in beta, and we see how far that has come. They could be holding that ladder, for a couple months after release to allow everybody to go through and play, see if there's any changes that they need to make to the Loot 2.0. Is there any class balances? Is there any of this or things that they have to address? And then once they have the game in a pretty fair state that they think is good, people have had their fun, they're familiar with the game, they've gotten to play around with the Paragon system, people have all played Crusaders and such, then would be a good time, in my opinion, to then release the ladders. People have gotten their interests, they've gotten to play it through, and then now we're going to give you something new. We're going to give you the new piece of candy to bring back that experience that everyone, enjoyed about the ladder. So that reset, you've had your chance to go through and, be a god. Now it's time to start over.
That's actually
And if we can see anything from our past experience, they said Blizzard gaming fans are really patient, waiting for new features. I'd be really happy to not have the ladder for a long time. So here's your question, Katniss. We're getting Loot 0.0 in March, and when they shut the auction house down, in theory, for Diablo 3 Classic. Will they have a ladder as well at that point?
no.
Long before Reaper of Souls. They're going to bust out a ladder with Loot 2.0. So if you want to be in the new economy, you can do a fresh start, and you don't have to fight with assholes who've got billions of gold stacked up already like Neinball.
My guess would be no, because Neinball has now convinced me that it's actually a genius idea. So there's basically 3 resets coming, right? You have March, whatever it is, 18th, 15th, 14th, where they're going to shut off the auction house, have Loot 2.0 come out, I'm assuming, at the same time. And so, people can now tinker with that system. Then, however many months down the road we get the expansion, let's say it has no ladders. All of a sudden, we're still playing it. We're still happy because it's new content. It's a new class, a new act, etc. We're digging it, and then eventually it gets boring 4 or 5 months down the road. Boom, they put ladders in. All right, now we have another reset, and now there's more stuff to do because now we're all going to be rushing the ladder at level 1 or whatever. So I think that in Blizzard's money making and wanting to stretch the game out for as long as possible viewpoint, they would probably stagger it. But from the player viewpoint, I think it would be awesome if we got all those things, as soon as possible. But I couldn't see the ladder coming out before Reaper of Souls came out.
Yeah, what he said.
Probably right. Okay, new topic. Idea I had: full level clear bonuses. You're doing levels, and there's always some corner on the map you haven't gotten to. You're like, oh, screw that. Or if it's some giant level like Dogger Oasis or something, you never do at all. What if there were some kind of bonuses, along the lines of like Kill Spree or Massacre bonuses, but of some use for killing every single damn thing on a big level? Every last little fallen imp and kind of all those little things crawling away from you, skeletons and barrels, everything. If you killed the last one, it drops 2 golden chests or something like that. Would that be something that would sound interesting? Would that reward players who don't want to just rush through content? They give, a meticulous bonus, something like that. Would that be interesting to either of you guys?
Yes and no. I mean, it's cool. It's an added feature of forcing you or not forcing you, but rewarding you for going through and clearing everything. But no, because it's like you go through, you've killed everything, and it's like trying to find that one last fallen in the Den of the Fallen. It's like you go through and you clear everything, and it's like, there's one left. Where the hell is he? I've gone through every single thing because this one guy got rezzed off your screen when you weren't paying attention. It's like it would. I think it would cause detrimental experiences, and everyone would go through that. No matter how good and how rewarding it is, everyone is going to remember and complain about, I cleared the entire level except for this one bat that's like 50 miles away from the closest waypoint. And I had to go through and spend 30 minutes trying to find this one creature, in order to get the level clear bonus.
I've always been a fan of completionist achievements and things that you have to toil and find every last thing for. And to commit the sin of talking about another game besides D3 in Path of Exile, I've been sitting in the mumble that we have for Diablo 3 Inc. gamers, and Marshall Sage and Kestegs and a couple of the other guys in there. They all play Path of Exile, and one of the things that you can get an achievement
Traitors.
for, I know, right? Terrible. One of the things you can get achievements for is clearing every zone once, and it's like a feat of strength that you might compare it to in D3. I think that would be cool, and I think if you want to make it reward based, it would have to be something that is better than the time you would spend moving on to another area and likely finding 5 more elite packs and a resplendent chest or something. Like it would basically have to like rain gold down from the sky for you to make it worth it, because otherwise wouldn't the most efficient player just want to move on rather than seek out that one last bat or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the hard part, is balancing it so it's worth it. I mean, there's a lot of builds of Diablo 3, obviously Barbarian's chief amongst them, where you don't even kill half the stuff you see. You just charge through, killing most of stuff and leave some whirlwinds behind and hope that the other stuff dies, and if not, who cares? And that's obviously a build that would not be functional for this. But there are other builds that aren't like that, and that you don't want to rush through. And it seems like it would be some sort of an equalizing factor. And of course, it's optional. Your example from the Den of Evil Neinball is valid, but that was a quest you had to find that last fallen. If you don't have to, you just run along and say, who cares? It's your choice as a player in Diablo 3 with this hypothetical feature. And I noticed that some of my classes, the more powerful characters I get tend to kill less. They're much less completionist because you move so fast and you kill so quickly. It's like, oh, screw this! I can find 4 bosses in the next area by the time I find this last corner of this one.
Yeah.
But for weaker characters or people who were playing a different way, it's something it would be something that would give them a bonus. Currently, all the game bonuses are set up to be the fastest you move and kill, the better. And this is sort of a counter to that in some
And
ways.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I like that idea. Like, I've always been against the whirlwind build, just because it really does, like, you're killing stuff and you're not even staying on the screen to see what drops, and that to me just felt very counter to like the loot game. And that was the reason why they had to add in, these pillars of light coming up from the sky and these stars on the map, so that these characters who are running way away from the kills that they're making can see, oh, there were drops back there. Who knew? Um, but I think, we have ideas of new content coming, like these loot runs and portals that open to take you to Nephilim trials and stuff. So what
Mm-hmm.
if the reward was, you kill the very last mob on the in the area, and there's a 50% chance that you get one of these loot portals or something? Then that can actually help, a character who's having trouble bootstrapping themselves up to these faster builds or whatever. Now they're getting a chance, hey, I'll just kill everything on this map and maybe I'll get this portal that takes me to this awesome trial, and I get a chance to get an elite item, and all of a sudden I can, increase my power.
Yeah, I think that they're actually doing a pretty good balance with the new Paragon or Nephilim trial. Sorry, it was an idea that I had back at the before the game had come out during beta, or I think even before beta. It was just putting something in the game that would actually reward you for exploring, taking time to explore, the entire map. And it's the Nephilim trials. Like, say if you go and you spawn, you load into Act 1, and it will, that there's going to be 3 Nephilim trials, somewhere out there. It then kind of rewards you for going and exploring every little nook and cranny and going into every little dungeon, because that's where the Nephilim trial might be, and just taking your time and playing through the entire act is at that point rewarding, because you get these these really good loot centric trials, assuming of course that they're going to have very good rewards tied to them. So it kind of it gives that it's a balance between the two of them, to where if the person that just wants to play through and clear everything and explore every last little nook and cranny is going to be rewarded because they're going to find all the Nephilim trials, and the person that just wants to hit the most efficient XP route and such is going to either skip over them, or is going to have to accept the fact that I'm going to have to hit some of the non efficient areas in order to try and find these Nephilim trials.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. I agree with that.
And we'll see how it happens. Okay, last topic, unless one of you guys to bring up something afterwards, in which case I'll probably delete you. Difficulty selection, difficulty changes in Reaper of Souls. That's a big data mine thing, and there's this cool image I dug up with all the little stained glass icons and stuff. And they're changing it, apparently, at least this is the plan currently. It might change before the game comes out, of course, where there's instead of having 10 levels of monster power, you're apparently going to have 6 levels of difficulty. Well, okay, there's a 0 and 1 through 5. Can we just say that's 6 levels?
Sure.
Or is it 0, and then 5 levels of difficulty? Because, go to hell. I can't be bothered with that. So the first one it says is easy. People who are noobs. So that'll be your hardcores Neinball.
Yay! Get them.
Level 1 is baseline Diablo 3. Level 2 enemies are slightly more powerful, a little more health. But none of those add experience or better gear drops. And then you have 3, 4, and 5 that get progressively harder. And you need much better gear, and you can score on those with more stuff. But it sounds a little bit like what you see in the console today, right? Where you have 3 difficulty levels to start with, but those don't actually do anything except to make it harder. You have to go up to the next difficulty level, and then there's 5 of those, right? Where you start getting the monster power and you get more goods, more experience.
That's correct, yeah.
And so, do you play? Oh, were you playing on super easy to start with, or medium or hard, just for more challenge, or were just? It seems like you would just want to play easy if you don't get any benefits to being on medium or hard until you're strong enough to jump up to the first one you actually get benefits on, which is what Master 1.
That's Master 1. And I mean, that's exactly the culture of what we see on the console. When I first got the game, I was like, oh, I played D3 PC like 1,000+ hours. I'm doing hard, like I'm badass, whatever. And I almost got gimped by a bunch of zombies right out front. It kind of brought me back to that getting into Inferno Act 1 for the first time in like 1.0.2 or whatever, and just getting slapped around. And I was like, wow, this is actually like difficult. This is weird. And then I went onto Reddit and our forums too, and saw people were saying, there's no benefit to being on hard. Just do easy, go through. You'll get the same gear drops. You'll get the same benefits. It's just a difficulty increase. There's no benefits. And so all of my characters that I've raised up to 60, I do a full clear of the entire game, like all 4 difficulties, all on easy. And usually by the time you're done with Inferno easy, you have enough gear to move up to Master 1. It's not super efficient, but you have enough gear to survive it and to kill and whatnot on that. So that's pretty much, I think, the experience across the board for people who are playing, unless they just want that initial challenge. But you do take on that challenge of doing medium or hard, knowing that you're not benefiting from it. You're just, you get to brag a little, I guess.
So it's just pure EPing.
Yep.
So that sounds like what they're doing. I mean, you read the description of this. That sounds like what they're doing with the plans for the PC. And do you think people will just all play on difficulty 0 and be like, Wyatt Chang's grandmother, until you have enough gear to jump up to 3 or 4?
When I saw those strings, that was initially what jumped to mind right away. I was like, oh, they're implementing the console difficulty system to PC. And I think that, I mean, yeah, path of least resistance, people are just going to play whatever is easiest until they start to benefit from moving, sliding the bar of difficulty up. It wouldn't make sense, again, unless we want the EPing to really triangle on that harder difficulty without any benefits. Like I wouldn't do MP10 on a brand new character hopping into Inferno, knowing that I'm going to be dying like 80% of the time, if I can just do MP1 and still benefit from density changes and know that I won't have that much MF, but I'll still be better than I was on MP0.
That would be a really good name for an expansion, actually. The POLR, as you mentioned, Path of Least Resistance. That's the Path of Exile too, right? It's when it gets really easy. So, what do you think about the difficulty thing, Nineball? I mean, what have you been doing? What MP level? It seems to me there's a big issue with this with hardcore, because if you're in softcore, who cares? You go up to difficulty 3 or 4 right away, and maybe you die a lot or whatever. But as someone who has tasted more than his fair share of the bitter truth, in hardcore, is that going to be an issue where hardcore players really have to work hard to be able to survive on difficulty 3 where you get any kind of bonus drops at all?
I think that there will be the minority that will do it just to say that they did, but
Not for long.
yeah, but I'm in agreement with Katniss here. With well, what is the point? If there's no tangible benefit for it, why go through the extra effort? If they don't offer the MP bonuses or gold fine or XP bonuses, then there is no point in playing at level 3 than level 0. Besides, making the game harder for you for no reason.
Maybe the NPCs will say nice things to you in town.
Aw, so
They're
touching.
so
Maybe
awesome.
Leah will flash you her red scaly boobs.
Whoa.
Spoilers. Um,
Right.
but
How's that a spoiler? She's got red scaly boobs. It's a skin condition.
but yeah.
My first wife had that.
Ooh. No wonder she's the first wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Well, the first divorce is always the hardest. After that, it gets easier. So yes, I don't. I'm wondering about the difficulty thing. I don't. Obviously, this is a system that's in testing, but it seems like from we're all in agreement, and obviously the console kind of has this now. And as you said, Katniss, people play on the easiest one until they can jump up to the first one that actually boosts their drops and their
I
experience.
do have one
So
question.
why have a 1 and 2?
I do have one question since I haven't played the console. Of course you have the difficulties of like the easy through hard and then the master 1 through 5 or whatever.
Hmm.
What do they call the difficulties? Like is like the
Easy, medium, hard.
well is normal, nightmare, hell, and inferno still referred to as difficulties? And then you have the other difficulty section. Like, what do they call them? Are they both just called
Oh,
difficulties?
I see what you're saying. I mean, I have the game up right now, so I can check for you. But yeah, I think it's so when you do it, you do quest select, and then you choose. Okay, so it's a mode. Normal, nightmare, hell, and inferno are your
Okay,
modes, and then you pick your act, you pick your quest, and then you pick the difficulty, which is easy,
gotcha.
medium, hard, master 1 through 5.
So the other point about difficulty that I was wondering about long ago, I pitched Wyatt and Erp about this in the podcast. I was going to say them they're Wyatt and Erp as opposed to Wyatt and Josh, because there's no good name for Josh. Josh and Smosh. Anyway, Wyatt and Erp. I talked about they should drop one of the 3 difficulty levels in the game instead of having to, or sorry, the modes as we now know they're
Hmm.
called. Instead of having to grind the same stupid content 4 times in a row, and especially my thought was once they add Act 5 in the expansion, of course they couldn't say they were going to have Act 5 in the expansion when I was doing this interview 2 months ago because nobody knew then. It was a secret.
Yeah,
Nobody could have guessed that, right? At least there weren't any pandas in it. But yeah, and they were
yeah.
like, well,
You
we
don't
don't know about
know.
that.
You don't know. They could add it in
So
just to spite you.
it seemed completely stupid to continue having 3 difficulty levels if you were going to add a whole other act because of the experience progression. And obviously they could rebalance the experience. So even with Act 5, you would still be, roughly 30, 50, 60 after each difficulty level. But that would be hella boring. And I don't know how much rerolling you guys have done lately, but once you have like a Hellfire Ring and you can play on MP level, you're like, 35, 55 bored is your 3 difficulty levels of experience progression. You're halfway to 60 once you get to hell and you just want to get to inferno and it sucks being 50 to 5. The horrible 50s we've called them, the fearsome
Oh yeah.
50s. And they're fearsome because you die a lot then, but also it's just boring. You want a friend to turbo you to act 3 and then just power through the keep on MP10 a couple times and hey, you're done. And that is still maybe an issue or maybe not because now we know there's also the max levels going up to 70. So do you think that given that we have 10 more levels, can they say now you're 35, 55, 70 is your progression. Is that make hell less of a annoying repetition of content, or do you think they should increase it and you're 40, 70 and then you're done and you're ready for Inferno?
Well, I guess Inferno originally was just supposed to be like the land where you farm, level 60 plus content in order to get your eye level 60 plus gear or whatever. So if Inferno is still thought of with that mindset, then I assume that it will be more of that rebalancing, like you're saying, making it so that you're at level 70 by the time you finish Hell. I could see where they could use this as an opportunity to get rid of a difficulty, but I frankly, I mean, I guess I just speculate that they won't, just because they're already changing the master power, or the, wow, I just combined the two, monster master power. So I think that
There you
that
go.
would right, master power. So I think that would be enough of a change to make it so um, people won't be as splintered throughout matchmaking. And I think that was kind of the goal with them possibly eliminating, master power or monster power 1 through 10, just making it 6 difficulties instead, so that if you're trying to get into a game with other people, you're not searching for a game forever, or searching for a game where people are, in and out on whatever monster power 2 or 3. And instead, it's going to be a lot easier to just get into a full game and, go on your way.
You have a thought on that one, Nineball?
I think I'm in agreement with you,
Do you
Flux.
want it to happen, or are you just accepting that it's not going to happen?
I would.
If you could wave your magic wand or your magic orb,
I
would you drop Hell experience and Hell mode entirely and just be in
yes,
Inferno?
that I would.
But you don't think it's going to happen?
I'm not sure. It's like I really don't know. I think.
Well, of course you don't know. It's hypothetical, damn it.
uh,
None of us know. Knowing has nothing to do with this. You have to be like Stephen A. Smith on ESPN. Just bark out asshole opinions left and right.
I think that
This is the internet,
that's.
dude.
I think it would be a good change to the game if they got rid of it. I think it is something that they should do and should be willing to do, is to get rid of Hell, and just go normal Nightmare Inferno, or say get rid of Inferno and rename it Hell.
Well, some of the things we've been speculating with a couple of friends and whatnot is that maybe the leveling process won't be as boring, just because they're going to add more stuff for you to do along the way. Like, we data mined that.
Like loot runs and stuff.
Exactly. Like, I don't think that those will just be end game opportunities. I think they might just pop up while you're, running through Magnus Cave for the third time or whatever. And they're also,
But would you care about getting better loot at level 37 or
I
something?
mean, I guess in the long
You
run,
could sell it
no.
on the auction. Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
whoops.
Yeah. Yeah. Just related point here. You continue that. But do you guys hunt down treasure goblins when you're leveling up a new character? Do you still feel compelled to run them down, even though you know they're not going to drop anything of any use at level 27 or 35 or 42 or whatever?
Oh,
Because I do,
yeah.
and I always wonder why I'm doing it as I do it, but I
Well,
do.
for me,
I
it's not really wondering why I do it. It's because there's obviously the animation while they're picking up their sack, they're immune and don't take damage, but they die in like 2 hits afterwards. So long as you have, a socketed weapon with like a perfect star or whatever, a perfect star ruby on the weapon, everything dies in 2 hits until you get to hell. So they're just a regular mob that you kill along the way.
Yeah, I don't think it kills efficiency that much, running 2 extra steps in the other direction to kill them. And you never know if you'll find like a legendary. It's just nice to see the fountain of loot fall from them, and train good habits too, of course.
A friend of mine.
I've had some times where it's dangerous. I mean, I'm usually doing MP10 on normal and nightmare when I'm doing new characters, and occasionally you'll see one right at the edge of a huge group. And you're not super geared at level 40 or 20 or whatever. I mean, you're obviously twinked and powered up with your, radiant star emeralds or whatever, and your weapons, rubies, sorry. But I've had a few times where I've actually been kind of risky running after him, or he'll get some AOE thing at the edge of the screen and take off, and you're like, oh, son of a bitch, and I have to run past 9 monsters to get to him. And as I'm doing it, I'm wondering, there's point oh billionth chance anything is going to drop of use here. Of course, that's true on Hell as well, but I still go after the son of a bitch. But anyway, you were saying before we jumped on that, Katniss, about something having to do with leveling up
Just that leveling up
and
as
difficulty.
a thing that we have to do when we re-roll. I think it'll just be more rewarding and a better experience, because yeah, it definitely does get boring, especially when you're in hell and you have that mounting feeling of, I'm so close to max level. I just want to get there. I want to start farming endgame. But I think that with the addition of, I think there was a data mine too that showed there's going to be, was like 100+ quests added, and I don't believe that all of those are
Yeah.
going to be just Act 5 quests. So I think they're going to open up a more robust system, leveling up, that you'll be able to engage in more of those random encounters. Help me find this idol in this cave, and you'll get a sweet reward or whatever. And yeah, like you were saying, like maybe you don't really care about the actual reward that you get, because it'll become useless to you once you're at max level and stuff. But it just makes the leveling process at least different. You're not always looking at the same screens and doing the same exact quest order. I don't know.
It sounds like you'll get more experience from those quests and therefore be even further above the experience curve, be even more bored having to get the last 7 levels on Hell. I have two related topic points on this. The difficulty settings that they're changing, if you can play it on 0, which is actually easier than the game is now, maybe that would make it. Currently, you really can't do anything in Inferno until you're level 60 at least. I mean, it's literally impossible. You can't be 57 in Inferno, because you don't have the gear.
Uh-huh.
But if they change it so you could make Inferno easier with the new difficulty level system on MP -4, whatever they're calling it, maybe you wouldn't need to be leveled up so much. Maybe you could be 65 and play an Inferno on Reaper of Souls, and it wouldn't be so bad. On the other hand, a sort of a counterpoint to my counterpoint, currently the biggest difference is gear. From 59 to 60 is a gigantic difference in gear. Unless they we're assuming they're not going to change all the current gear levels. So therefore, in Reaper of Souls, you'll have really good gear at 60 and 61 and 62 and 63. So you won't have that, the fearsome 50s are now. You're not going to have the shitty 60s, right? Because once you're in the 60s, at least you have pretty good gear. I mean, maybe there's going to be the best stuff in Reaper of Souls will be all level 70. But if you're plowing through the 60s and you've got, Mimpos and all the current stuff you have now and trifecta rings and you're finding some new stuff and leveled up, scaled up legendaries, it's not going to be a miserable experience. So I'm arguing against myself here, I realize, but it seems like it's not going to be. I assumed and hoped they would be dropping Hell difficulty or Nightmare, or one of the 4. Who cares what they call it, right? But as long as they call it Hell, I don't care what they call it. But it doesn't seem like it's that big a deal for reasons you guys have said, and also because of mainly of the gear and the other game modes and stuff.
I think I hadn't thought about that point of, right now you have to be level, what is it, 25 to get out of normal, level 50 to get out of nightmare, level 60 to get out of hell. I hadn't thought about the idea of if they get rid of those level requirements, like it's kind of, buyer beware. Like you can go ahead and jump into the next difficulty. It may actually be harder for you, but you'll also get rewarded because you're gonna have access to those better drops. And if you can get above, well, I guess that kind of gets rid of that point anyways. But if you're above the level curve, like there's no reason for you to be stuck in Nightmare at level 55 or whatever, because you're already ready for those next drops and those next monsters. So that's an interesting point. And I guess the other thing would be is how they balance, how they do balance the next modes when they make the change over to ROS. Because if Inferno is going to be where we do our endgame farming, I would assume all those monsters are going to be eye level 70 or monster level 70, and then they're going to drop the level 70 gear. So you wouldn't want to be in Inferno as a fresh 60 because you'd probably be getting killed pretty quickly. You're going to need those 3000 DPS weapons or whatever.
Well, they already
You'll get owned with a P.
yeah,
Yes.
they already addressed that. It's your Inferno unlocks at 60 so long as you do not have the expansion installed. But as soon as you install the expansion, and it raises your level cap to 70, Inferno becomes, you have to be level 70 in order to access Inferno. You can't get into it beforehand.
So they're keeping the level requirements then.
Yes, for that at least.
So you'll have to go basically do Act 5 to get from 60 to 70. Act 5 Hell.
Yeah.
Once you get the expansion, because you're nub and you can't go to Inferno
And
yet.
I would hope that the experience is at least. I mean, if anything, that is more of an indicator that they are going to potentially remove a difficulty and change the leveling scale, just for the fact that you have 10 levels to gain between 60 and 70 in one single act, unless they expect us to play through it multiple times. Yeah.
Well, you can do Act 4 too. That's always fun. Speaking of red scaly breasts.
Yes.
So any final thoughts, guys? Any other points you're dying to get into?
No, not really. Because I mean, as long as we want to keep it story spoiler free, that's all really it so far.
No one cares about the story anyway, Neinball. I'm sorry
I guess
to break this to you
I'm
now.
the only one.
You and Leonard Boyashki can dry each other's tears, but
Too funny. I mean, for me, we touched on everything that I wanted to touch on. I'm just really interested to see how difficulty comes about, because obviously Wyatt's been going crazy in the forums talking about The changes to life steal, the changes to life on hit, the fact that they're going to be going over all the other skills so that their proc effects or proc coefficients are all pretty similar, etc. So it really does seem like they're not only looking at making the actual difficulty harder, the monsters harder, but also making it so that our choices in what skills we use and how we gear ourselves will also contribute to the difficulty. And I think that's interesting that they're looking at it from both sides and not just making it where you're going to find all this awesome gear, but the monsters will hit you, X% harder. Like there's going to be, it's not just one flat change versus one other change. So that's cool.
Yeah, as far as like the Wyatt Chang's comments on combat and such, I think that what I have to speak about on that one could fill an entire podcast on its own.
It's easy to say, I mean, you can look back at plenty of interviews from before the launch, and there are all these really cool things about how combat's going to work, and subtleties, and how the item game is going to be, and a lot of stuff just never came about from what they were speculating. So we can get our little hopes and dreams up, and then they get smashed.
And I guess that's why they never like to exactly give us, what they're working on, because things do change. And then we all get mad.
Well, that's the reasoning that they've given forever is why they don't tell us anything.
And it's always proven correct.
Yeah, true.
Whenever they do change something, it's always, except for the auction house.
That is the one thing. That's the one thing that probably is most detrimental to everybody. Everyone seems to be the most excited about.
Well, we're all foolish sheep, and we'll be shorn sooner or later. Okay, I think we've covered the bases here. You've been listening to the Diablo podcast. We are online at diabloinkgamers.com, and moo.
Moo?
Moo, 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 moo.